Hello and welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us today for yet another amazing episode with another incredible guest who has so much insights and information to share. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Michelle. I hope I live up. I hope I half live up to that fabulous introduction.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's so wonderful to have you on the show today. And for those of you who aren't aware of Phil, he has been a man of many hats and many careers and many talents. And I've met him personally through the Professional Speakers Group, but I know he's also in technology, he's in sales, he's in so many different groups. And so, as I said, wears so many different hats. But Phil, do you want to share with people a little bit about your background and how you came to be doing what you're doing now?
All right. Well, I'll try to keep it brief, but essentially, my background goes way back. When I was growing up, I had some significant challenges. Unfortunately, when I was about 8 years old, my father, who I idolized, who was a doctor, was basically diagnosed with MS, and soon after had to give up a lot of his activities. So I think I was around 8 years old at the time. And it was obviously very frustrating for him, and watching him go through that. And then when I was about 11, my dad at the time was in his late 30s. In his early 40s, he got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and unfortunately passed away at 46. I just turned 14, so that had a marked effect on my life. My dad was my mentor. I was very we were quite in tune, and he used to inspire me and work with me. And unfortunately, my life sort of went quite downhill after that. So much so that in high school, and I think year 10, we did the school certificate. I got 6 A's in my final year of high school. I failed every subject, and no one seemed to, in those days, this was a long way back. I'm just turned 68. This was a long way back. This was in the, sort of 50s, 60s. There was no counseling. There was no grief counseling. Unfortunately, my mother did the best job she could, but that wasn't really her bag. So I struggled for a long time. Personally with a long time. And it was something I couldn't really reconcile, get over with. It affected my life. Anyway, I eventually went to university, finished a commerce marketing degree. It wasn't really something I really applied myself to. I found myself traveled for a number of years trying to find myself. I've later learned that you can't go anywhere to find yourself. The work has to be done internally. There's no special place where you're going to find yourself. So, that included going to India and Nepal and all sorts of wonderful places. I've done a lot of traveling, but essentially, I ended up as a graduate trainee for a big American computer company. Did that for a few years, then started my own business, which thankfully was successful. And at the age of approaching the age of 50, that sort of business started to change because technology, up till then had been pretty stable, was now undergoing some significant changes, which it has done ever since. And I'm not a technologist, so I thought, well, what am I going to do? And a number of things happened, but I decided that I wanted to sort of give back. I've done a lot of personal growth. So to get from where I was, say from 14, which was really on the floor, with no clue what was going, what life was about, and really struggling to try to figure it all out. I did an enormous amount of personal development work, which I still do. I haven't stopped that journey. And then I decided, I really wanted to give back. I liked inspiring people. I like making a difference. I like speaking. I like selling, basically, which is just influencing people positively. And so I became a partner with a company in the US. I became a consultative sales, trainer, coach, speaker. So I was working with technology companies, leaders of technology companies, coaching salespeople, teaching a consultative selling process for many years, which went very well. And I made another transition 2 years ago. So I learned to speak, coach, train. One of the highlights of that, as well as working with some large companies and people and helping transform their lives, thankfully, I ended up speaking on stage at the Conference Centre in Sydney, speaking before the Dalai Lama. So that was part of that journey. And 2 years ago, one of my clients actually asked me to come into work in their business, which is a cybersecurity business. And so I've been helping them for the last 2 years. So I'm getting involved in all sorts of things with them. So that's very exciting. So still learning and growing, hopefully still making a contribution, which is what it's all about.
Wow, thank you. I know when speaking with somebody with your level of experience with work and with personal development, the journey that you've been on, and then to be able to condense it like you have, thank you. It's wonderful. I think you've given a wonderful flavour of who you are and that thirst for curiosity and for knowledge, and also that a lot of that work experience then has been around that technology and sales and helping people or influencing people, like you were saying. But I also want to recognise that it takes a lot to come from the troubles and challenges that you had to begin with as a young man. And having gone through all of that and grown and learned, I guess people would be interested, what do you think is success for you? What does it mean for you now?
Yeah, well, it has changed. As I said, I've just turned 68, thankfully. It would have been different, when I was 38, and it would have been different when I was 28. But success for me now is essentially it's essentially being present to the moment. And it's making most of the life that's presented to me. It's also using what I've learned, the challenges that I've had, and thankfully the ones I've managed to overcome to help others make a difference and contribute. I think, people are often like looking for their purpose or whatever that is. And, it's a deep subject. We could spend an hour or two talking about that. But I think it's essentially about making a difference, and improving the world a little bit, helping other people and contributing.
Wow, what big, you throw them off as the everyday kind of, definitions about success, but that making a difference, improving the world and supporting people are really wonderful areas of success. And I know with such, in a sense, big goals and big ambitions around what success is for you, you will also have some incredible insights into what then do you feel are some of the skills and the tools of the years to keep building that internal success for yourself that you can share with others?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, this whole idea of success, what is success? I think in the Western world, we've achieved a lot of things, a lot of great things, but I think also along with that has come some things that probably are not so great. And one of these things is this ubiquitous, search for, success and achievement as being the holy grail, and quite, and usually that equates to being, some sort of ego-based attainment of some position or wealth or acquisition of stuff. And I used to think that, and most of the personal development stuff that still today is often about that. It's, it's about setting goals and achieving them, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. And look, let me say quite openly that I'm very thankful that pretty much I've achieved far more in those sort of terms than I thought I ever would when I was 14, 15, 16, 20, whatever. So I'm very grateful. And it's great, I have a wonderful life in that sense. But, so often that we find those things are not really fulfilling. I've just, we get the job that we've always wanted. We do everything we can and we get the job and we feel like, euphoric and terrific for a while. And then after 6 months or a year or so, it's not exactly what we thought it was going to be. And, 18 months later, we're looking for something else. And
so you raise a really good point there about, focusing too much perhaps on those outcomes, whether it's a bigger house, a bigger car, a bigger paycheck or whatever.
Yeah.
What sorts of things did you learn? Because you've obviously been through that cycle a few times. So what sorts of things did you learn to recognize that you were losing sight, in a sense, of that internal goal of creating happiness and joy, and focusing too much on the external. How did you notice that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. If we're going to be really open, I'm okay to be really open. So I'll share my vulnerabilities with you. So, you know, during that, I think just there's no one, I mean, we look at people who seemingly have all the things we want to have and we think their life is better and they're happier. They're not. Okay. So I know a lot of people in that sort of boat. I'm sure you do. I'm sure some of the people listening do. You know, people who seemingly have everything, but they're not happy. Then, you know, seriously. And it's got to do with the nature of, you know, of humans. You know, as soon as we get something, we've had it for a while, we no sooner look around that someone else has got something better and we want that too. So in my personal development journey from, you know, very early in my 20s to 50 and beyond, you know, I realized I did achieve stuff, but like everyone else, I had challenges in my life. So it wasn't all beer and Skittles. And no, you can look at people and they've got the fancy car, the fancy house, nice family, but they're like, they've got other stuff too. And if they were really honest and they were okay to be vulnerable and, you know, you sat with them for a while and they were very honest, you'd find out there's stuff they're not happy about, and which probably they think about most of the time, in spite of having the stuff that you think is going to make people happy. So I had a few instances in my life where just things didn't work out the way that they would. And I got to a point where I just sort of thinking, well, is this, you know, is this sort of quest for achievement and, you know, traditional success, is this like, is this working? And I sort of realized, well, I don't think it is. And then I'm a big fan of Oprah, and, you know, and so I, you know, and other people like that. And I used to watch and see some people sort of talking about, you know, the real sources of happiness and fulfillment. And it wasn't, and we all know this, most of us know this, but, you know, we don't really, we don't act on it, but it's not in external achievement. It's actually, you know, it's about how you, it's about basically having this internal sense of fulfillment. And I'm simply embarked on a journey where, you know what, I work to let go a lot of those notions about what traditional success was, even though I was very conditioned to have those, as we all are. And I worked very hard to let go of those traditional conditioning patterns. And I don't want to make this too woo-woo or spiritual.
We don't need to go too spiritual about it. But I think people listening, because you've raised some really great points about it's the internal, not the external.
Yeah.
But also those programming elements around society, TV, social media, even.
Yes.
Everything is kind of reflecting this conditioning of success equals the house, the car, the this, the that, yes, whatever. So if you can just think maybe of one or two examples of what specifically did you do to help you to reprogram, and it doesn't need to be woo-woo, but what did you do to reprogram?
Okay, so firstly, I mean, there's a big sort of meditation is, you know, Eastern meditation, call it mindfulness, is becoming quite popular in the West for good reason. And it's about the fact that most of us have a lot of stuff going on between our ears that's not really working for us. So I'll give you an example. I was in India last week, staying at a 5-star Western hotel, a great hotel. And I went down for breakfast in the first morning and I was like, wow, this is sensational. They had everything you could ever want to eat. They had, Western food, huge array of Western food, huge array of Indian food, other Asian food. And I had my normal breakfast. And then I saw some cakes, and they had about 10 different styles of cakes, which I don't normally eat for breakfast, but I'm standing there and I'm going, oh, they look nice. There's a muffin. Anyway, I had a muffin. And I thought, wow, isn't that wonderful? Because I don't generally have a muffin for breakfast. And the next morning, it was exactly the same thing. But I noticed that after about morning 4, I was standing there, and instead of looking at the muffins and going, wow, isn't this great? My mind, now I wasn't doing this willingly. What was going through my mind was, why do they have the same food out every day? How come they haven't changed the cakes? And because I do a lot of mindfulness work, I was very aware that that's what was going on in my mind. And I was very aware that my mind was like now all of a sudden becoming disgruntled because they hadn't changed the cakes. So going from 3 days before where I was like thinking, wow, this is fantastic. And that is sort of the human condition. We get to a point in economics, it's called the law of diminishing returns, where the more of something we have, the less we appreciate it. And so, being aware of what was going on in my mind, I did my best just to let it go and just enjoy the moment and either take a muffin or don't. But while you're sort of going through this mental rumination about why aren't they changing the cakes? And we do that all the time about various things throughout the day. So, as I say, there's nothing wrong with having a muffin. There's nothing wrong with having a great life. There's nothing wrong with traveling. There's nothing wrong with doing work and being paid well for it and all the rest of it. But a lot of the time we're just causing our own suffering, if you like. So
that's a really good, so these are really good points that you're raising around. And I love the law of diminishing return because it's one of my favorites as well. And you described it so well and so beautifully with the muffin example, because yes, on day one, it's like overwhelm and the kid in the candy shop, and it's like, yeah, look at all the choices that I have for whatever I want to have from whatever cultural background for breakfast. To, like you said, by day 4, it's like, why is it all exactly the same?
What else is there? Bring it on. Let's change this.
And yeah, so a lot of what you're describing is the human condition and the way that we're kind of pre-programmed for many of these things. And I love, because you touch very clearly then on the mindfulness as being a technique that you've been able to use to become aware of those shifts in your thinking and be aware of it, to then not make the day 4 breakfast spread be right or wrong or this or that.
Absolutely.
But to start to monitor your emotional reaction to it and go, on the first day I was the kid in the candy shop, and today I'm the disappointed kid that turned up and the candy shop was empty or something, or closed.
Exactly, although it wasn't. But and that's, so the realization of that quite a few years ago, that we're creating our own suffering regardless of what we have. I mean, I remember years ago I made the most money I'd ever made in a single month, and it was pretty substantial, and it was quite a few years ago. And I remember I was having coaching at the time, and I was saying, I haven't got any joy out of this. And that also set me back. And I'm thinking, why don't I get joy out of this? I'm supposed to be absolutely joyous. So I guess the point is, look, I want to say to people, there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with pursuing a career. There's nothing wrong with learning. There's nothing wrong with growing. There's nothing wrong with material possessions. It's just that in my life at 68 years of age, you asked me about my life and my experiences of what I've learned and what I consider success to be. And I would have said, after reading Think and Grow Rich 20 times 25 years ago and desperately wanting to be rich financially and, achieving some measure of that success, that it's not really, I found it's not really where it's at. What's really where it's at is to be happy. And what's really where it's at is to have a sense of fulfillment. And that sense of fulfillment you can have regardless of whether you have those other things or not. And that example of being in the hotel downstairs, where it was just my conditioned mind to always want more, is a recipe for unhappiness.
And you remind me so beautifully as well about this recipe for happiness, because it'll show my age a little bit, but when I was at university, we used to have one video recorder in the student units, and we would come together on a Friday night and have like a video night and watch videos, compared to now, where you can stream whatever you want, whenever you want, in the comfort of your own home. But I do reflect on that sense of community that we got from having less. And so I think, like I'm going to keep thinking about this as the muffin episode. I'm going to keep thinking about the muffin, because sometimes that abundance doesn't give you that fulfillment that you're talking about. And I think that's what stuck with me about the video example from when I was at uni. Watching movies, is great, and it's very luxurious in the first world to be able to do that. But it's not necessarily equaling, joy and connection.
Well, here's the thing. The message is, it doesn't last. So you're right. On that first day, I was a kid in a candy shop, and I was full of joy and, celebration for all these different types of foods, particularly the cakes. but it doesn't last. And, you know, to go back to that, I mean, just coming from India, where I've been several times because I love the place, and this time was for work, it's what you see is many of the people there don't have a lot. But in terms of your story about connection, gratitude, and just general appreciation for life, they're smiling. But you don't see too many of us walking around smiling.
No, and I I was staying with somebody the other day, and they had this very strange Google sort of channel that's out there now, where it was basically just watching people for hours and hours, and sometimes it would be watching them here, sometimes it would be watching them there, and they're in borough markets in London, and this is Westerners on holiday from all over Europe, all over the world, not actually just Westerners, from Asia, all over the world, people on holidays. And you're exactly right, Phil, because the thing that I noticed was nobody was smiling. So they're on holidays, they're enjoying borough markets, and, you know, there's lots of great food and smells and entertainment. And I thought, wow, there's nobody smiling in this. It was really quite strange.
And it's very typical. I mean, you know, I work near Circular Quay, and you go down there and there's throngs of people, but there's not too many people. Everybody's in a hurry. As one of my very good friends that has a very, you know, very grounded view of life says, everyone's in a hurry going nowhere. You know, if you think about it, he's right. You know, like, so, you know, I think we lose perspective. But I'll throw this story out in case anybody thinks I'm absolutely nuts. And you know, India, I've drunk some bad water in India, and it's turned me into a lunatic. So everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are familiar with the Rhonda Byrne's book. You know, the manifestation. What was Rhonda Byrne? Rhonda Byrne, you know, Rhonda Byrne. So Rhonda Byrne, Australian author. She wrote the book. I've probably got it here somewhere. I know I've had it. Anyway, it's about you know, about how to manifest success, how to manifest, you know, get what you want. I'm just trying to think. The Secret. They made a movie out of it. They made a movie out of it. The Secret. She made $40 million, I think, from that one book, The Secret, right? And since then, she's written quite a few other books. Well, most people don't know this, but Rhonda Byrne's last book basically says, I got everything I ever wanted and I wasn't happy. And the book is about the sort of things that I've just been touching on.
Yeah, and many years ago, I was lucky to also come across some training where it talked about symbol versus experience. And so the types of things that we're talking about when we say cars and houses and big paychecks and stuff, they're kind of symbols, but it can be the experience, you know, of connection, of sharing things with people, of having good experiences. And I think society as a whole, especially since COVID, has been moving more and more towards an experience kind of focus, which is great.
Yes.
Where people are understanding this, that having that focus on, well, what brings me innate joy or inner joy,
yes,
is a different way of living. It's a different way of answering that question. So what does success mean to you? And it can be, well, what brings me joy and what makes my heart sing?
Yeah, what makes my heart sing, and what am I doing that's actually robbing me of this experience of joy? Because there are people, and I buy into this, that will tell you that we are innately joyful. I mean, most children are innately joyful. They play, you know, every now and again they might fall over and they'll start crying, but they forget about it really quickly. They're in the moment. You know, as kids, it's all right for us to go and play and pretend we're this, pretend we're that, and then pretend we're something else. But, you know, healthy kids are in the moment. But we're not. We get to a certain point, you know, conditioning is a big part of it, where we get told, we're barraged with advertising, media, you know, promotions, etc., where we're told this, you know, this is the car adverts, this is where it's at, the good-looking guy with a good-looking girl. And, you know, as I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I drive a nice car. I drive a BMW. It's a lovely car. But, you know, like I think, you know, when you ask me about success, I'm very big about sort of qualifying that it's not just the traditional notions, the Rhonda Byrne secret, get what you want, you know, live in the house, get the car, have the kids, it's going to make your life wonderful. It's not. It's all about those sort of things we've been talking about realizing that it is internal. It is about connection. It is about doing things that, that contribute. It is about, following things that make, that you get joy from doing, as long as it's contributory and not as long as it's just a pursuit for pleasure. Or certainly harming anyone else. So over the years, my definition of success has somewhat changed. And now I actually think people are talking about achievement, not success, when they talk about those traditional means of evaluating the worth of one's life and effort.
And this is also where I talk about Maslow quite a lot, because I think that his hierarchy really helps to also differentiate, because the lower level things are, they are important. Having a car,
yes,
having a house, having money to pay for food and bills, all the way through to, well, once you have those elements taken care of, then it becomes more about that self-actualization.
Yes.
And I love your examples today, because they're showing again that from some challenges from your earlier years, and then that self-development journey that you went on, that awareness that you built around what you're doing and how you're doing it helps you to then differentiate between, well, this is a symbol, it's a house, a car, or whatever, but this is the self-actualization in Maslow's hierarchy, where it's actually the experience of having the connection, having the this and having the that.
Absolutely. And someone could say, well, Phil, it's all very well for you to talk about self-actualization because, you've got all the things, but, believe you me, if I really wanted to, I can sit there and ruminate about someone that's got a lot more than I have and feel miserable. So, then I'm no longer self-actualized. And there's, who was it? I forget. I can't remember who was it. I'm a big follower of Eckhart Tolle and people like that. I can't remember who said, the guy with the big boat feels great until he parks his boat and the guy with the bigger boat turns up next to him. And self-actualization goes out the window very quickly unless you're A, staying aware, and B, working on it, all the time, because the mind is that's the way we're wired, unfortunately, or conditioned.
Yeah, I agree. And that's another really good example where, you're so excited about what you've achieved in that big boat until somebody else comes along with a bigger boat, and then you have small boat syndrome.
And there's always somebody else with a bigger boat.
That's just how life works.
That's life.
So, Phil, if people wanted to get hold of you, what's the best way of chatting with you some more about cybersecurity and self-actualization?
Cybersecurity, self-actualization, you name it. I'm a lifelong learner, so if something takes my attention, I really do sort of tend to try to find out about it. But if anybody wants to get hold of me to discuss any of these esoteric matters, and I'm quite happy to, but probably the best email, because my general email address has actually got a bit of a connection issue. So I'll give you my other one we'll go to, which is leephil, Leephil, leephil at tpg.com.au. That's leephil, one word, Leephil at tpg.com.au.
And also, of course, through LinkedIn, I'm guessing.
Yeah, of course, I'm on LinkedIn, so it's Phil Lee.
LinkedIn, yeah.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I don't think I'm that hard to find. I think it's my tag with LinkedIn is revenue growth expert or specialist, which is what I'm currently doing. I work with the company I'm working with, helping to generate revenue growth.
Fabulous. And very quickly, then, if you were to give yourself some advice, your younger self, what might that advice be?
Oh, that's a great question. So if I could give my younger self some advice, it would be, the great book written quite a few years ago, which is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I think the subtitle was It's All Small Stuff. And it really is small stuff. Now, unfortunately, we tend to magnify it. The mind tends to magnify that. So it's very easy to say. It's a great concept. It's a great bumper sticker. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. But it's about, learning to be aware what's going on in your mind, because really most of the time, mind's a great thing. Put men on the moon with people out in space, and you and I can do various things that are, really wonderful. The human race has done some wonderful things, but unfortunately, we're also a bit of a victim to the way that we tend to think because of just the way the mind works, the conditioning we've had. So it's pretty much all small stuff. We get to enjoy a certain amount of period on this planet. We found no other planet that has anything near what we have. They're all just barren rocks, which is what we've found. And yet we've got such magnificence. And most of us go, oh, it's too hot today, or it's too cold today, or I wish I was somewhere else. I mean, really, we're very, very, very fortunate in the Western world, particularly in Australia. We are so lucky. So why don't we think like that?
Fabulous. And what a wonderful way to end there, Phil, with the don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small. And whether you're in Australia or India or whatever, to again watch your thinking about where you are and what your life is happening in your life, and to refocus on what you have and that gratitude.
Just be grateful, and you can work on being grateful, because it's as simple as, if you need to, as Oprah says, and I did it for years, you just write down 5 things you've got to be grateful for. And believe me, you do that enough, and all of a sudden, instead of going, it's too hot, you go, wow, it's amazing. There's a sun out there that's beaming down heat, and, I'm here to experience it. And then I can go for a swim. So, it's just such a small thing, but so powerful.
Very powerful. And again, Phil, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been really wonderful. And to all the viewers out there, I'm sure that you're just as grateful as I am to have had somebody with such wide and diverse life experience to come today and talk about muffins. It's been a really wonderful show. And I will remember this is the muffin.
You will not forget that story.
I won't. It's a wonderful, wonderful example. But for now, we're at time. So from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.